After not seeing him for a month, John suddenly thrust a divorce lawyer's business card at me. He didn't even ask, "Are you okay?" or, "How are you feeling?" Divorcing a wife who doesn't work. Pay me $1,000 a month as alimony, sounds good. Take care, he said with a smug chuckle. Standing beside him, Emily wrapped her arm around his, wearing the same self-satisfied smile. "Fine, let's divorce, then," I said calmly. My tone must have surprised him, but he quickly exchanged a grin with Emily. Good, I thought. John isn't much of a thinker, it makes my plan easier. After the divorce papers were finalized, I began planning my revenge. I would make both of them cry as part of my recovery. My name is Sarah Wolf. I'm a 47-year-old illustrator and children's book author. I've loved drawing since I was a kid. My two closest childhood friends were John and Emily. They were both important to me. John was also my husband. It all began when John asked me out just as I was preparing to leave for another college after high school. I was surprised. I had always thought he liked Emily. Still, I couldn't turn down a confession from the boy I had secretly loved. After talking it over with Emily, I accepted John's proposal. Emily had always been a bit of a problem, flirtatious and attention-seeking, but she was still dear to both of us. She had a bad habit of stealing other girls' boyfriends and then dumping them once they became too attached. Her parents often worried about her, so John and I spent time with her to keep her out of trouble. John and I married when we were 25. 4 years later, Emily introduced us to her fiancé, George, a polite and successful professional from a top-tier company. Nice to meet you, Sarah and John. I've heard so much about you, looking forward to our future together, he said warmly. We got along immediately, often spending holidays together or taking short trips as couples. But things changed after Emily got pregnant, 2 years into her marriage. John and I had always agreed not to have children. We both loved kids, but we also loved our freedom, traveling, enjoying quiet dinners, living life on our own terms. We admired families with children from afar, and that was enough. When Emily announced her pregnancy, however, John's behavior began to shift. He quit smoking because she said the smell made her sick. He even started using his vacation days to drive her to doctor's appointments. George might get upset if you're always with Emily, I warned. John frowned. You have work, don't you? She's our childhood friend and she asked for help. You're being heartless. I've helped plenty, John. But going with her to every appointment, that's crossing a line. Why? She's anxious, and I can't just let her go alone. If she's anxious, then her husband should go with her, I said firmly. You going every time makes it seem like you're the father of the baby. John's expression darkened. Jealous? You're not getting pregnant anyway, so what's the problem? That hurt. It wasn't just rude, it was cruel. From then on, our arguments grew frequent and bitter. Even after Emily gave birth to her daughter, Emma, things didn't improve. John began spending even more time with them. When Emma turned 6, a strange incident occurred. The night before her kindergarten graduation, I found John digging through the closet, tossing his suits onto the bed. What are you doing? You have a meeting tomorrow, I asked. No, I'm just trying to decide what to wear for the graduation ceremony. You're attending the graduation? Yeah, George can't make it, and Emily asked me to go. Wait, what? That's ridiculous, I blurted. John's face hardened. You still doubt me and Emily? I'm disappointed you can't even help out. That's not the point, I snapped. Anyway, I'm going. Iron my shirt properly, he said coldly before walking off. Frustrated, I called Emily. Emily, about tomorrow. Oh, sorry, I'm borrowing John, she said casually. But won't George be upset? Sarah, what are you talking about? I didn't even tell George about the graduation. I'll let him know afterward. I froze. She hadn't told her own husband? After pressing further, I learned that Emily hadn't told George about any of Emma's school events. John had been acting as Emma's father at the kindergarten. The realization made me sick. Emily, that's completely unreasonable. It's disrespectful to George and to me. Relax, Sarah. You're scary when you get angry. Anyway, see you tomorrow. Then she hung up. My hands were trembling with rage. Still, I ironed John's shirt. tied his tie, and watched him leave for another woman's child's graduation. From then on, John and Emily's meetings increased, from once a month, to once a week, to almost every other day. Even George began to grow suspicious. One night, while they were out, George came to my house looking pale and tense. "I'm sorry for showing up so late," he said quietly. "There's something I need to show you." He handed me his phone. It was a GPS log from Emily's car. "She's been staying at a hotel 3 times a week," he said, his voice shaking. All those days, John had been with her. I didn't need more proof. "What do you want to do, George?" I asked. "I want revenge." "So do I said. "I won't forgive them for what they've done." From that night on, we began planning in secret. I focused on rebuilding my income. Years of being a homemaker and helping with Emma had drained my finances. Meanwhile, George switched to remote work. Whenever John and Emily went out, George would bring Emma to my house, and we'd care for her together, 2 betrayed people holding on to dignity through patience. They never suspected a thing. We gathered all the evidence we needed. But just when we were ready to strike back, we discovered a truth about Emma that shattered everything. George and I were devastated. In the end, we agreed we couldn't hurt the child. She was innocent, so we decided to wait until she was grown. But before those 10 years could pass, I fell seriously ill. The doctors said I'd need long-term hospitalization, at least 2 years. I could still work a little from my hospital bed, but my strength was fading fast. When I told George about it, his expression turned grave. Something in his eyes told me that our story, and our revenge, was far from over. When I told John about my illness, his reaction was as indifferent as if we were making small talk. I'll visit you once in a while," he said casually, without even glancing up from his phone. That was when I realized John had completely stopped caring for me. He didn't ask what disease I had or how I was feeling. In the end, his promise to visit, once in a while, turned into once a month, sometimes once every 2. After Emma turned 15, she began acting distant. She had visited me almost every day right after I was hospitalized, but now she rarely came. George and I couldn't understand why. Whenever we asked, she only said, "Don't worry about it," and quickly changed the subject. The answer, surprisingly, came from John, of all people, who hadn't shown up in months. "Hey, it's been a while," he said one day, barging into my hospital room without knocking. "Yeah, it has," I replied coolly. He looked different, flashy clothes, new hairstyle, gold accessories. He smirked, handed me a business card, and said, "Divorcing a wife who doesn't work. You'll pay me $1,000 a month in alimony. Sounds fair, right?" He grinned as if it were a game. Beside him stood Emily, her arm looped around his, wearing the same smug smile. "Fine," I said evenly. "Let's divorce, then." My calmness threw him off for a moment, but he quickly recovered, exchanging a satisfied look with Emily. Perfect, I thought. He never was the thinking type. That'll make this easier. Once the divorce papers were finalized, I began preparing my revenge. I wanted to make them both regret everything they'd done, slowly, painfully, and legally. My first move was to contact George. Together, we arranged my transfer to a new hospital and appointed my lawyer to handle all communication with John. George also moved near my new hospital with Emma. Though Emma seemed troubled and quieter than usual, I was grateful she still visited every day. I left all my belongings behind and told John to dispose of them. I didn't want a single thing touched by him or Emily to enter my new life. But just a few days later, my phone showed 30 missed calls. When I finally picked up, John was screaming. "Hey, what the hell is going on?" he shouted, his voice filled with panic. I could hear a real estate agent talking in the background, and Emily yelling too. "What are you talking about?" I asked calmly. "The house. Why do we have to move out?" "Because," I said coldly, "that house is mine." John fell silent. He seemed to have forgotten that the place we lived in had originally been my rented workspace back when I was starting out as a freelance illustrator. I'd let him move in because he couldn't afford his own place. He had never paid rent or utilities, only a small share of groceries and basic expenses. Since the hospital was far from that apartment, I'd already cancelled the lease right after the divorce. The agent had promised to inform him. George and Emma suddenly disappeared, and now our house is gone. What are we supposed to do? John barked. I don't know, I said, switching my phone to speaker mode. Maybe stay in a business hotel for now. Don't screw with me, he shouted, but then, realizing anger wouldn't help, his tone softened. Okay, whatever. When will you send the money? We're running out of cash. What money? I asked flatly. The $11,000 I told you to pay. Oh, I don't remember agreeing to that. My answer made him explode with incoherent yelling. Apparently, he had already spent money he didn't have, assuming I'd support him. There's really nothing left to discuss, I said lightly. We're strangers now. Any future contact will go through my lawyer. Huh? Wait, Sarah. I hung up. He called back repeatedly, but I ignored every attempt. Eventually, the calls stopped, though he also started ignoring messages from my lawyer, proving once again how immature he was. A few months later, after being temporarily discharged from the hospital, I decided to visit John's parents. When I entered their living room, John and Emily were already there, pale and trembling. Telling my parents about the divorce was a low blow. John muttered. Oh, I just thought they deserved to know, I replied lightly. John's father glared at him. Is it true you're marrying Emily? Yes, John said proudly. Emily, Emma, and I are going to start over as a family. What nonsense, his father snapped. Your family is Sarah. She's not my family anymore, John shot back. Then he handed me a piece of paper. Here's the hotel bill from our engagement party, he said smugly. His mother gasped. What on earth, John? I didn't raise you to behave like this. John looked confused. Emily, however, smiled faintly. You'll understand soon. Emma is your real grandchild, after all. That was the final straw for Emma, who had been quietly scrolling through her phone in the corner. Enough. This is disgusting, she said. The room went silent. She stood, her voice steady. My dad, George, is the only father I'll ever have. Whether we share blood or not doesn't matter. He was the one who raised me, loved me, and showed up for me. You too? You're nothing. Then she turned to me and smiled softly. I thought you'd hate me when you found out, but Dad said you wouldn't, and he was right. Emma, I love you, I whispered, tears in my eyes. You visiting me in the hospital meant the world to me. She hugged me tightly. I'll always be on your side. Emily looked furious and shaken, but before she could speak, the door opened and George stepped in. We knew the truth 10 years ago, he said calmly, facing Emily. And by the way, you're still my wife. You never filed the divorce papers. Emily froze. So, George continued, Emma is legally still my daughter, but since she's 15, she can choose which parent to live with. That's not true, Emily cried. Emma wants to live with me, right? Emma frowned and squeezed my hand without answering. John suddenly laughed mockingly. So that's what this is, you two teaming up? Good luck living on George's salary alone. Actually, I said quietly, George earns twice what you think, and unlike you, he's stable. John rolled his eyes. And you? You can't even work while sick. You'll just die somewhere miserable. I couldn't help but laugh. You really don't know anything, do you? My annual income is $500,000. John's mouth fell open. Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. Liar, she hissed. Oh, would you like to see? I held up my phone, showing the deposits. Children's books sell well when the author's famous. John's expression shifted from shock to desperation. Sarah, let's start over, he stammered. Emily turned on him instantly. What did you just say? I smiled faintly. If you two want to get married, go ahead. Just don't forget, I'll be claiming damages. Ignoring John's protests, I took Emma's hand, thanked my in-laws, and left. John's life quickly collapsed. His father discovered he had lied about company sales and fired him. Soon after, he was sent to work on a fishing boat run by a family friend. He hated the sea, but there was no other option. Emily, meanwhile, lost custody of Emma and the financial security she'd always relied on. Disowned by her family, she lived alone in a rundown apartment. barely surviving on part-time jobs. As for Emma, she grew stronger through it all. She's in high school now, dreaming of studying abroad to translate my books for children around the world. My books continue to sell well, one is even being adapted into an anime. My health is improving, and the doctor says I might be discharged next year. George and Emma visit me every day. Recently, George confessed that he wants to marry me once I leave the hospital. I haven't given him an answer yet, but when I look at him and Emma, I feel something I haven't felt in years, peace. Until I decide, I keep writing, pouring hope, forgiveness, and love into my stories, just as I've finally begun to find those things in my own life.